All right, and we're back. Or I would be back. Now I'm back. Here we're back now. Back on CJ's sweet, sweet abs.
Mm-hmm.
As
How
God intended. Well, I mean, when I say as God intended,
as
am I
CJ
talking about
intended?
CJ as CJ? Because especially as he has apparently reality warping powers that everyone likes. So, hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, but no, let's move on from the existential
Yes.
crisis for now.
Little bit of a cut there. Had to record this on a
Yes,
different day to split it up, but we're back in full force.
as one would hope. And CJ glancing across at his bay.
Mm-hmm. Woke up
Oh,
pretty fast.
I mean, their lives have been in constant danger from spiritual bullshit for some time now. I think getting quick to come out of your sleep is probably a habit at this point.
Fair enough.
You don't know when some kind of crazed fox spirit, or even more crazed goddess will come along and try to rip out your brain
Yeah, don't you
juices.
just hate it when that happens? God.
My God, is it Thursday again already?
All right. So,
Yes.
get back into the swing of things.
Jamie showing her usual incredibly potent empathy for CJ. She probably almost more than anyone else. She will subordinate her emotions to CJ. Now, Vic kind of does that, but her emotions are so passionate that they will often like flare up, and that will take over. But CJ and Jamie, when they're together, Jamie is very much emotionally subservient to CJ's needs, which is just kind of her part of her love language. She's very much of that type. Yes, Jamie totally not concealing the fact that she
No,
has.
on the couch?
It's okay. She's Jamie's developing a gum fetish. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Jamie asked. Jamie asked. Jamie asked. Jamie asked. Jamie. Hey, sorry. You think that's bad?
Breakfast at
We all know he's on.
3:43 in the afternoon. God.
God, goddamn millennial. Look at this.
Oh no.
Oh, and here she comes. That will not be a concern. Let's go.
Oh
I
boy.
really feel like Tsukiko needs to work on her bedside manner. I'm just saying. Like she's refreshingly direct, but sometimes just a little
Mhm.
easing in would be good. And here we are, straight up some intense symbology. The burning wheel of Orgzo, the void of Kione on the far right, and Carpo's brightness, power.
Mhm.
And here we get all three of them, all the parts of Tsukiko,
Well,
separate but operating as one.
all quote unquote.
Well, yes, apart from the fourth soul. It has to be said like that.
Yep.
I like the fact she refers to Crow as our mountain fox as well. That's an interesting linguistic choice there by Tsukiko. Whether it's referring to the collar that's on her, or the fact that she sees herself to be one with CJ, and therefore all that is like belonging to CJ.
It's definitely just the fact that she has a leash around Crow.
It could be both. It can be both.
It,
It can easily be both, to be fair. I know you're still hung up, understandably, on Tsukiko being super sus. But
well,
I totally get it. Like, she's being set up to be potentially problematic.
well, I don't think this will actually be like an actual problem. I don't see. I think we've.
I don't see any kind of malicious betrayal going on now, but I do see her
malicious. Yes,
miscommunication. Maybe.
Miscommunication for sure, and also we've talked about it, but the whole like, oh, don't worry, we know what's best for you type of vibe that given out almost every other chapter. I'm just like, oh, that's totally not going to come to bite everybody in the fucking ass later.
Well, it's weird because it's not done with that. We know what's best. It's just that I feel like with Tsukiko, the place it comes from to me is that it comes from a place of someone with limited emotional intelligence, who is doing what they think is best in a very earnest way, and it's almost naive in how earnest.
You're right. Doing what she thinks is best.
But not in the context of what she thinks is best, but in the context of what she can do. Think about how desperate Jamie is to help CJ. I genuinely feel that Jamie's desperation to help CJ is at the root of exactly what you're talking about. It's not coming from a I know what's best, as in I'm smarter than you or anything like that. It's coming from a I have to do anything and everything because I'm not enough.
Yeah, and I'm just.
You see what I'm saying?
I know. I get what you're saying. I'm just afraid that it's going to go too far. That's my thing. Is something's
but anyway,
happen.
let's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. But go back just a little bit. Just go back just a little bit because we were kind of distracted there. Kroyarik here talking about, again, down on herself. Like, proving yourself yet to get a worthy heir to reality through her failure. Now, you could say there's a little bit of ego there by how she sailed, but she obviously wants to turn her best side to CJ. So it's interesting that she will still refer to her failure so openly and so directly. Even if she is then just immediately turning it a way to big up CJ again. Though, I do wonder if part of Crow's, the way she boosts his ego, is in response to the fact that she does understand just how self-torturing CJ is. Like, she knew OG very well, and he is a lot like him, as we all know. Like, all the shards are very similar to their core. They're just different expressions of the possible paths the core personality can take based on their experiences. It is one way to look at them. So it's interesting to see that, to consider that maybe she knows him better than anyone else, in certain ways at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would definitely not argue with
and
that.
Tsukiko just blatantly, without any tact whatsoever, calling out poor Crow on, the fact that she's torturing herself to feel better. I can hear Seven groaning in the distance. And yes, now we get a little bit about how the powers of the four goddesses are balancing, and how even just having a matching pair of the two opposites of each other, is making it much easier to control that power. Which really just adds to how
makes sense.
Everything about Oot when it comes to the power dynamics is about balance. It's about restoring a balance that has been lost and broken. This collection of bodies is hard to tell with how mechanical she can be, that whether or not it makes sense,
It's very interesting.
Also, I find it interesting that Matoi is presented here as an equal. She even though that given the circumstances, she is in essence more Jamie than she is herself. She is still being presented here as an equal vessel that makes up Tsukiko, which is interesting.
Who do you think we're going to get to represent the fourth here? Because I mean,
it all depends on who the fourth person is. Like, it could. I mean, there are a few theories out there that I kind of ruminate on from time to time. Like, what if Cursed Girl is the fourth soul of Tsukiko? The part of her the part of her that maybe is slumbering right now, or that was tied, or is derived more directly from Grandpa. Like, there's a lot of potential variables at play here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one theory I've toyed with is that so we know in the creation of Jamie and therefore Tsukiko that Grandpa was trying to force his karma onto the soul that was Mizzy/Jamie to create a vessel for him to inhabit as himself. My question becomes, what happened to the rest of his karma? Because Mizzy only carries his karma up until the point he makes the choice.
Isn't that why he's super shattered everywhere? Like, he isn't just like he exists in more than one place at this point. That's kind of where the rest of it is.
Does he? We don't know that for sure. We don't really know. We don't really know for sure much about how Grandpa functions. We know that he was when he died, his soul was cast into the other side because he...
I swear I remember reading that we pretty much knew that he had gotten kind of shattered across everywhere.
It's sort of not shattered because that has particular connotations.
Yes, but I can't think of another word.
I would say that by his own description, when he was cast to the other side, he was cast adrift for a very long time.
But he's not whole. That's the thing, though, is he's not Like he.
Yeah, but the context of how he refers to that is up for debate. Is he talking about how he has been erased from the memory of the world because of how he died and what he is, or is he talking about a much wider thing of how he is now changed into a spiritual entity that is God? That is the nature of that spiritual entity, and being a spiritual entity allows you to exist in multiple places at once, at least to some degree. Like you're aspected, at least somewhat. It appears, but that again is an assumption. Not to mention, how many times has Grandpa been proven wrong? Like, he speaks with great confidence and authority on a lot of points, but holy crap, has he been proven wrong many times?
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, you can pretend to know everything, but really, I mean, you can only.
I mean, he doesn't pretend; he absolutely believes it, which is how this sort of narcissist works.
Well, sure. I mean, he can pretend to know everything, but realistically, he should know that he doesn't. Even if he's like, "Yeah, I know everything that works." When everything I've done goes wrong, totally.
All right, that's enough of a digression for now. But
well, the weird thing is about these three is we've seen these three since the very beginning. Whenever we've got the transformation of Jamie becoming her, just the arrival of Tsukiko, but the fourth, I assume it's not going to be anyone that we've seen already. And that's what's weird. I mean, it could be Curse Girl for sure. I definitely wouldn't discount that.
Yeah, I mean, there are other
entity among these three that's going to represent Tsukiko.
I mean,
it's weird.
There's plenty of other wild card possibilities here for this. Like, it could be something as bizarre as I honestly can't figure out where Lindsay fits into Grandpa's plans. Like, she was appeared in the trailer for this arc, and Grandpa appears behind her.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah, so Grandpa appearing again is really fucking weird. I thought we would have at least been like, it'd be a while before he saw him again after just seeing him in Hector's arc.
The fact he appears,
didn't see him only saw him
the fact he's appearing in the background, I think to me indicates that maybe he's not necessarily an active participant in this arc. I suspect what we may be dealing with is a remnant of a plan of his. Like, God knows how many plans.
Just like it was with Teresa's arc, where he showed up, but just in the past. Yeah. No, I guess I could see that.
I feel like that may be the case where whatever's going on with the green-haired girl and Lindsay.
He genetically made magic girls in real life. There we go. And
I mean, if you think about it, maybe he did try to manufacture or control his own shards. Think about it. Not for himself, mind. But imagine for a moment that you want to try and control where a shard emerges. And you understand that the process of cultivating a shard, because he knew about Ayu, which means he knows about the shard process and how it comes into existence over generations.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
And this kind of links with a theory that a few people have knocked around, which at first I didn't give much credence to, but has kind of grown on me lately. That Grandpa at one point talks about how he managed to delay things. So that opens up the possibility that there was a previous generation of shards that were going to emerge, and he delayed it somehow. Right?
I was always under the impression, again, I could be totally wrong here, when he said that in the context that he was talking about, I swore that he was talking about how the parents of all the of our cast were supposed to be the ones, but he pushed it back a generation, which is why
that's what we're talking about here. And more to the point, it's why we have Ghost Mamas. The Ghost Squad is Ayu, Leia's mom, and Ruriko Jr.'s mom, which, and then we have Rayze, who is the father.
And we have fucking Hector too, dude. It's
right.
It's all over there.
So the only person who's a parent missing are the ones with living parents, so they can't be consciously a part of it.
And
but
Ashley's parents wouldn't die or anything like that. That'd be
well, maybe not Ashley's parents, but what about Kieran / Misaki's?
Yeah, we don't know a whole lot about Kieran's mom, but
I mean, and that feels like kind of a deliberate oversight from where we are now. So let's take this at face value for a moment. Let's take the idea that that he delayed it from the generation it was supposed to be, and that the Ghost Squad is a representative of that. That means there is one anomaly outside of the fact that we don't have, one for Hebe's shard yet. Which we don't have one in for anyone else. That's Sigma CJ. The angry CJ who is angry at this CJ. So, like, how about this? What if that CJ is the CJ from that generation? And
see that? Okay, I had this theory before, and everybody told me it was fucking bad.
Yeah, but I'm gonna twist it a little bit. I don't think that CJ was meant to be born then. I think he was never born at all because of something that Grandpa did.
Yeah.
So
I totally
his spirit,
agree.
therefore, was that essence was then thrown away. So it's not that he was born and then was killed in our world, or however you want to put it.
Yeah,
it's that he was never born at all.
Never born at all, or he got fucking banished. Like,
I mean, if he was banished, I feel like there would have been some kind of signs that we would have
storm.
Like,
there we go.
Yeah.
That's it. It all comes together.
Well, yeah, that's what maybe the storm was Grandpa doing a ritual to try to block that shard from manifesting, and he succeeded. But during the process of succeeding, he came to realize that it was just a temporary measure. He can't alter the karmic threads in that way. He's just all he did was buy time. But that meant that CJ gets thrown aside. Remember how that CJ react? CJ Sigma, look how he reacted to Ruriko's appearance in here.
You're right. Think about it this way though. What if he so let's just say Grandpa did succeed, right? He got rid of what would have been this world CJ. And it would have worked had Uxo not interfered. Because Uxo, we know, is the one that did this whole entire long cycle and finally was able to try it out of making like the combined essences of tons of universes all together to make perfect CJ or whatever she thinks the equivalent of everybody.
Well, that's what she believes, but bear in mind that she's operating blind. What if she isn't
her
aware?
Influence 100% is like
her influence
CJ is not the original.
But I don't think that's the result of her influence. I think that's the result of Skydad / young CJ. I think that the third element that we know from Word of God was present at CJ's creation / birth with Sonya and Stacy. I think that's where they come in. I think that they took advantage of some kind of whatever disruption Grandpa managed to introduce into the normal flow of events. And that enabled them to act, where previously perhaps they hadn't been able to do so.
Yeah.
Like, we know that Tsukiko is a wild card. She's new. This is a new addition to the cycle. But at the same time, we also see in the prologue, we see that one, who, as far as we know, that's OG, Old Glory, using Mizzy's magic with the guns, which would imply a connection there between Tsukiko and...
I mean, it totally could... I mean, let's be real. The prologue could absolutely be like, hey, this isn't really the prologue. This is just a scene from chapter 100, by the way. You know?
Yeah, or it could be both.
Yeah.
This could be a cycle thing. This could be where it's repeating a pattern. And we also know the bombs reverberate forwards and backwards in time. Right? So it could easily be that...
It's really odd how that fucking gun is the only reason why we question the prologue as much as we do. I mean, the prologue's always been interesting because it's supposed to show the past, supposedly, but...
Yeah, just before the shattering is the theory. But again, I would genuinely not put it past Anon to have this situation where it is the past and it's the future.
It wouldn't make sense, though, because Sarah's not there. There's no way Crow would be there and Sarah's not there. I don't know.
That depends. That all depends. What if Sarah is... The bond is there, but she's elsewhere, holding the line elsewhere. I mean,
sure.
Crow is his left hand. She is his left hand. She is his passion and his violence. Right? If you're going to go into a combat situation, you bring your biggest gun. Crow is his biggest gun. I'm just putting it out there. Like there are explanations.
No, you're right. Crow is infinitely more.
I'm not saying that I'm definitively right. I'm just saying that there are plausible explanations as to why Sarah wouldn't be there.
Yeah, being quadrillion years old will do that to your power scaling for sure.
Right, like existing through multiple existences of reality itself.
Yep.
Will generally do that. I mean, she calls an entity that was around when our planet was a ball of molten flaming rock child.
Yeah.
So, it says a lot.
All right, let's try to focus in real quick and.
Yeah, it's a rich vein here. That's why there's going to be a lot of digression, which is one of the reasons we put this one off, because from the run where we were going, because there's a lot to unpack in this one, and it touches on a lot of deep stuff.
Yep. This one was really made for the thinkers, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, as Anon himself stated, yeah.
Yep. Then we get
So just here, just establishing now that Ashley's cut off from her goddess. And Crow in full advisor mode here. She's showing none of her flirtiness or aggression or any of that. She is just have full blown getting the job done. I am the left hand type stuff. Like she's really leaning into her role here. In some ways, I feel like this is a glimpse of maybe how she worked in the past. And here we get confirmation of what we theorized previously.
Are Crow's eyes big in the prologue?
I honestly don't remember.
Because we know that that's a correlation, because her eyes were really fucking tiny when we first met her and shit like that. Why do I not remember that? I'll have to go back and look, because that's a really
that's something we'll check for a future one.
That shows.
I'm not sure. I'm sure it'll be relevant in the future. But yes, here we are establishing that the Hebe shards are split, not only between twin shards, but even more than they normally would be.
A shard of a shard of a shard
of a shard. And here we just see they're just spelling it out for us.
A late night phone call and some crazy lady in the background.
See, now this is actually interesting though, because that means that double confirms that she and Kieran had the same experience. Misaki did not.
Yep.
This to me is very important and absolutely worth reiterating. It means that on a spiritual sense, that Kieran's place is closer to Crow than it is to Misaki. Which makes sense.
This line right here, this is
that line is going to make things so
for me about a lot of things that I talk about. I have forgotten many things over the years.
And in this case, she's talking about she doesn't even remember completely what she was doing, even a matter of months prior, since she got part of her memories back.
Yep.
Which makes sense. She was so deep into her trauma and insanity at that point.
Which is a point I brought up before. It's like, how much of that time did she really experience? Like, you can, if you don't remember what you were doing, you didn't really. I mean, you're not really experiencing all that time.
The way I would describe it is if anyone listening has ever had an experience where they've been so angry or so sad or so any extreme of emotion, do they remember the time itself or just the emotion itself when you reflect back on that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I will wager 9 times out of 10 you don't remember much of the actual physical time itself. You remember the emotion. Imagine that, but for billions of years. That's kind of what Crow was living. And again, not an excuse for Crow's actions, but it definitely does add some context.
Mm-hmm.
And Seven will like this bit. Look, it's Crow's fault. Kiko has pronounced it.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. We can end.
There it is.
We end the chapter there. It's Crow's fault.
It's Crow's fault. The green and blue tainted with red.
Closed.
Crow's interference with to try and hijack her own shard has created this situation at least with regards to Hebe.
And here we have a revelation that wasn't all that surprising whenever we got it, which was...
Yeah, but there is an element here which I think is worth mentioning out. Okay, so Hebe's shards manifest as twins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean Hebe herself is a twin, or is she still an individual, but with a twin soul element going on within herself?
It's definitely got to be the latter, because I don't... If there was a separate entity that was the twin, like, we would have seen it in all the, like...
Would we? How
I
much
think
have we
so.
actually seen Hebe? How much have we actually seen Hebe?
Well, we've
like,
seen
literally...
a silhouette. If it was 2 people, we would have
Yeah,
been able
well,
to tell.
what's the meaning of a silhouette? Like, the silhouette could have just been one of her faces.
Well, sure. I mean, but it would still be... I feel like it would still be the same entity. You can still... I mean, look at... I mean, good example.
I mean, spiritually speaking, they are the same entity. Like, they're 2 halves of one whole.
Yes.
So yes,
what I mean.
but what I'm saying is that they could still exist in the same way that Jamie and Mizzy are 2 halves of the same whole.
Then yeah,
well,
sure.
they're the same whole.
That's kind of what I was trying to say. Maybe I didn't say it correctly.
Yeah,
but
spiritually you're right. Spiritually they're the same entity, but I'm talking about as we would perceive them in game. Could they be separate parts?
I mean, we've seen this whole thing of like, I mean, because I mean, how it was supposed to be is like, Misaki and Ashley are 2 very different, if they're going to be twins, people, right? I mean, if they're supposed to be the same entity, it would be the same situation of like, yeah, two different personalities, same entity, that sort of thing. 100%.
Yeah, but so I'm just putting out the possibility that it's CJ with Crow's color in his background there, which is interesting. And CJ putting it together, showing he's not quite as dumb as he looks. Crow, of course, cannot help but big up her back. Even at her, she's got an ego. We all know it. It's fine. We just accept this.
Oh, Lord.
I mean, with tits that big, I would have an ego too. So.
Okay.
Yes. And Sugiko cannot help but talk in flowery terms. Her love of metaphor is great. Geez, I wonder who else we know has a real thing for speaking in metaphor.
Oh no.
Really makes you think.
Oh my god, we're not doing that. We're not doing it. It really makes you think, huh? That's the whole point of this, is to think.
See, that at least is a bit more direct.
Yep.
Of course, it's about holes, though. Interesting that Jamie here is specifically called Tsukiko, whereas Mizue is referred to as herself, though. That's an interesting touch.
Yeah.
That's a bit where there's is that if you go back a little bit, just a couple of shots. Go back one more. One forward one. All right, that to me is an almost implicit confirmation of Crow's perspective and statement that her and Sarah are two halves of one system.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I don't know. I feel like at this point, there's not a whole lot of evidence that needs to be put forth for that. I mean, it's kind of obvious.
I mean, depends how much you trust Crow's word.
Well, I mean, we don't even have to trust Crow's word. I mean, we can just see it for ourselves, the viewer of the story. Now, them telling that to CJ and trying to get Sarah to believe it. Okay, sure, I get. That's fair enough for repeating the point, but it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But no, you're right.
It's just worth noting that Tsukiko agrees, basically. But yes, going forward to some more sexy visuals. Possibly one of my favorite Crow sequences, just like that, just with the glow and then the glow up and then the glow down and then her glance downwards. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. The fact that Crow could affect things so much.
Yeah, I feel like it's. I mean, I don't know. Do you think that's just because of how old she is and how powerful she is, or do you think that?
I think it's a combination of things. I think that's part of it. I think it's also Hebe's refusal to give power to her. She's obviously withholding as much as she can from giving anything to her shards.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of things. Mizue / Tsukiko making a good point there that Crow did not foresee anything like this. Which throws out the odd possibility that Crow may have been being manipulated all along.
Mm-hmm.
Which would certainly be a real fiery, proverbial fox among the henhouse, pun intended. If it turns out that Crow is at least only in part manipulated by another entity to achieve the current aims, that's going to throw her culpability into a whole different new meaning of the word, or question, I should say.
Yeah.
Even Mizue / Tsukiko's questioning of that.
Yeah.
Points for Crow for being direct here, not that she has any reason to try to dissemble.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes, and here we get to the crux of what I think is going to be one of the major points in this one is that we're going to be looking for the other shards.
Which are just it's got to be
shards
the
of
sisters.
shards.
Yeah.
The sister, yeah, highly likely it's Kieran's sisters, and then possibly Ashley and this other, not Ashley, possibly Lindsay and this other girl. I suspect, given their color coordination in the trailer, as a possibility as well.
The end is in sight. Fucking lies.
Well, maybe she genuinely believes it. I mean, maybe from a certain perspective it is, because the only thing we've established as a goal for them is the preservation of their world. But the question then becomes, once that preservation is achieved, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
Like that, and I think that might be a big part of what
This
Chapter
cataclysm
15
will be avoided.
But this one will. But
Yeah.
fade out.
We mustn't, Terry. Eternity awaits our action. Interesting.
I'm telling you. And there's Jimmy just, yep. Okay, that was a thing that happened.
Please tell me that shit is as annoying for you as it is for me.
And yet, ironically, she is the one who's doing it.
Spirits have no manners, do they? Dang.
Damn.
Dang.
Damn.
Yeah.
Burn.
Oh my god.
Also fair, but yes.
Yeah. We really want to get technical here. Everything really is just CJ's fault, technically speaking.
I mean, in a very twisted, fucked up, distant sense, you could make
that's
that
right.
case.
I mean, if we're
You
gonna
would
blame
be a
Pro for
soulless
things, we might as
monster.
well just fucking. I mean, it's fucking CJ's fault, right? I mean,
CJ is OG, and OG is at the root of all of this, my guy.
that's right.
Jamie is handling the flirting from CJ much better.
Yep, that's true. That's a good question.
Oh boy. CJ though, showing his emotional awareness intelligence again.
Mm-hmm. And
here we get to see the Ashley posse.
that's right.
Our girl Sophie there. Heat's LR character in all of her petite, horny glory. And, of course, the eponymous Gloria. Darling of Tropicali.
It's so fucking sad we don't have anything with her yet. God, it's awful.
Price of Patreon, my friends.
Such a shame.
Oh, look. Shion, the quiet slut. That's not my words. That's Ashley's. I just want that out for the record. That's not me. I didn't call it that. I'm just repeating what was put forward. And Haruki just having fun. Vibing with a healthy rivalry with her friend Sarah. Dim thighs, dim hips. And that. Yep, there she is again.
It's crazy
Girl's
how he
sensational.
looks like this. What?
I mean, I always thought it was based on pictures he took for himself, self-modeling. That's what I
Yeah, that's what I thought. I genuinely thought he was just a femboy, and that was just what Anon
Yeah,
decided
that was
to
just
make.
absolutely. We love you, Heat. It's done with. We say it with love and affection. And we get to see here Ashley actually in an environment we don't usually get to see her in, where she's the one who's the center of attention and quotation marks in control.
Yep.
Which is obviously something she kind of
I
craves.
feel like it's
in
really
some
hard.
levels.
It's really hard to because in the group that she's normally in, it's really hard to play
Stand
the
out.
role that she's playing right now with them.
Yeah, for such powerful personalities. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Gloria being the mature one of the group here, as we'll see as we go forward through this conversation.
Of course. Once again, a shame.
Practicing.
We need more Gloria content. We absolutely do.
I mean, that's just a given.
Uh,
Oh my. But that's interesting. The cousins that can bench press her with one arm. That means that perhaps.
well, I
Kieran's
mean,
not the
Ashley's
only.
like weighs almost nothing.
Yeah, but it still is interesting. And you can see that why Sophie and Ashley get along so well.
Yep.
Definitely a shared, very horny brain cell situation.
We're exclusive, closed loop. Nobody's catching nothing.
Haruki actually providing a little bit of insight into what it's like for someone on the outside of a polycule.
I mean, I
trying
feel like
to understand
STDs
the
don't.
inside.
I mean, would STDs still fucking exist? With
I mean,
all
they'd
the
still be
G mods and
around.
shit?
I think they'd still be around, but they'd be rarer and much easier to treat. So it would be far less of an issue.
I would feel like with all the gene mods that do specific shit, like, I just feel like it would be like STD immunity would be like #1 up there. Like, oh yeah, they don't exist anymore because you can't get them. I don't know.
Yeah, but there are other diseases which are linked to sex, which may be not so easy to protect against with gene
I guess fair
modification.
enough.
And don't forget that gene mods don't always take.
Sure, but if everybody has that,
I mean, you're talking about a kind of herd immunity here, and that's possible, but we don't know to what degree and how ubiquitous those sorts of gene mods are. So maybe STDs
and this is
and all that
fairly
other stuff.
recent since gene modding's existed. To be fair,
So I mean, maybe those things are dwindling, but they're probably not gone. You know,
Fair
like
enough.
it's still that would probably be what you'd be comfortable to say. And once again, we get some Kieran ass. Not that it's we're really in a position to miss it.
Good
Like
morning,
ever.
swim club.
And here we see Kieran absolutely terrified.
Yep. Total contrast to how she was earlier, huh?
I mean, look at that classic defensive posture, upturned look, crossed arms, hunched shoulders. She's feeling very afraid and very defensive right now. Guilt and shame are terrible things. Interesting that Gloria is the one who's probably the most skeptical, though. She is not cool
I mean,
with the harm.
well, let's be clear, rightfully so, but from their perspective,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just saying that she takes that role in the group in Ashley's group of being the. In a sense, she's taking Vic's role, but in that group.
yeah. Oh God, that's why I like her so much. Fuck. No,
Yes, she is.
no.
Did you not know this?
no,
Did you
no,
not
no,
realize
no, no.
this?
No, I did.
That she's basically
it's
she's
just
basically a bit more. She's a more calm and collected Vic
it's
in a lot of
just-
ways.
It's just a type.
She's the cool big sis. And Ashley, bless her soul, doing everything in her power to try and make things better. And probably just, not being as effective as one hoped.
Misaki like, yeah, I think we should have thought about going with these two.
I mean,
Yeah, we knew this was
anxiety
gonna happen.
kind of blinds you to things like that. Like, she was obviously very anxious about this. I also kind of think that Ashley feels like this. Oh, something I can do at last. So she's kind of going in with both feet on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Ashley, Ashley, Ashley.
Ashley's face.
It's interesting that Ashley kind of sees it then like as a compliment, though. It's a very healthy and interesting attitude to take.
Yeah.
I love this coordination of the hand placement for all the girls there, doing the very classic anime hands out to their sides.
Of course.
And CJ just looking fucking CJ like, man.
I like the CJ outfits here.
Yeah. And this is where this is him moving into his new digs, which is his sugar mama's place.
Mm-hmm.
Now becoming a full-time sugar baby. And Mizue is absolutely fucking ecstatic about having his dick on stamp. I mean, having him to stay. Past life. Interesting that she refers to that as her past life. So she's sort of really an indication that she has separated her current self from the memories of Hayato.
I feel like that was a. She kind of got past that a little bit ago, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's nice to have confirmation, right? And because it's when you do something casually and unthinkingly, there's a real reflection of what's going on under the hood, rather than a conscious thing a lot of the time, right? It's when you internalize something that you really work. Indeed, literal royalty.
That's just having standards. Great joke. Fucking love that.
I really like that Teresa stepped in though to make sure that she got the room for him that she felt he needed. She really does understand him the best in a lot of ways. I think, obviously, a side effect of her role in things and her abilities, but also just it shows where very much her priorities are. And Leia cannot help teasing Jamie.
Of course.
Man, this is where we get a normie's response to all the insanity that is going on with these guys.
Oh, right. Oh, my God. This is so fucking hilarious. God, trying to explain that to everybody and then getting called crazy.
It's a good example of just how hard it would be. Like, can you imagine trying to explain spirits and gods and ghosts and all that stuff to people who have absolutely no clue?
Karen,
And even more so when it's
so
time to touch on
right now. She's so nervous.
I mean, she just doesn't know what to do or how to cope.
Yep.
That's why she's kind of letting Ashley run away with it.
I mean, probably for the best.
I mean, yes or no? Oh dear.
Ashley immediately going in with no just
no prep.
Up.
Just mountain spot spirit.
So guess what? Everything that bad happened in your childhood are not her fault. Guess what?
Oh man. I mean, I adore Ash's intention here, but oof.
Yeah.
With her big Hulk hands. So smooth, Ash. I mean, that's an appropriate look to have on your face at that.
What?
What are you saying? Just like...
What are the words that are coming out of your mouth?
Bro, do you read what you type?
Bro, do you read what you type? Oh, no.
Shout out to my Mad Tickle.
Oh, man, I know what I'm doing for that. And then them thinking she's crazy. I mean, not like a wild response to hearing, by the way.
Oh, and even more so in the context of like Kieran's past actions. Like she
Yeah.
was violent and unpredictable, and like that I mean, Sarah mentions this in his reaction thread. Go check it out; it's a really good one. He mentions even from an early point that a way people would perceive Kieran would be like she was a schizophrenic, possibly
Oh,
even
yeah.
DID, which dissociative identity disorder, split personality as it's known previously.
I'm not crazy. You're crazy.
I mean,
And Ashley
he's a
being
little
like, how did the words that came out of my mouth end up with him thinking that Kieran's crazy? She just has no idea.
because Ashley, and I love her to bits. Do not get me wrong. She doesn't. She's so pure in her in her innocence, ha ha ha, that she just doesn't quite grasp things. Oh dear. And Ash trying to save things, and in the process, is kind of making it worse. But again, the purest of intentions.
I thought you were kidding when you found a crack pipe. I mean, I can't blame them for their reactions here. I
You can't. Like, if you take a step back, like you would want to say,
me
like,
being
oh,
realistic,
of
what if
course
my
I should
friends
trust
came up
you,
to me like,
Cleveland.
hey, by the way, guess what? Gods exist. Also, one of your friends was possessed since childhood. I'd be like, cool.
Yeah, your abusive sister. It's not her fault.
What AVN are you guys playing again?
How many drugs are you taking right now?
Yeah, that's right. Maybe that means you can't, nerd.
Nerd. And Sarah just being Sarah.
I mean, let's be real here. Sarah's a great representative of CJ. If she says it, it must be true, and it will happen.
Yeah, I
Totally.
mean, technically. And again, Sophie showing that she is just as horny as Ashley. And Gloria just trying to, rein things in again a little bit. Like,
We're so in. I don't think you could afford me. Actually, I'm friends with the richest person in the world. How much?
From anyone else it would sound insulting, but
Yeah.
obviously then Sarah's just so goddamn pure in her statements.
He's like, okay, you want money? That's fine. What do you want? It's fine. Oh my god.
It's all good. We don't mind.
CJ. Yeah, it's nice. I thought y'all were done with the maids' outfits.
And the girls just like the outfits, which, I can respect that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, first of all, who doesn't like maid outfits? Second of all, you've been wearing that most of your life. I mean,
it's a powerful part of their identity in a lot of respects. Like the responsibility and the thing is, they like their jobs. And even if there is an element of like they're hardwired to be subservient, if you make it something they enjoy, then it doesn't become something bad anymore.
Yep, that's true.
So if you do it in the healthiest way possible, even an unhealthy urge can be managed. And Mizzy just, Mizzy, my beloved.
Calm down. You literally have her in real life. It's not
I
even that big of a
know.
deal.
Shout out to Gabby. I love you, babe. You cut that part out.
Yeah. No, that's staying in. No.
I mean, I don't mind
no.
either way, but I
No,
understand if you do.
no. That's more work on my part. We know how we feel about that.
Okay. Glad to know your sense of priorities are in the right spot.
That's why, hey, we're recording this like it's a live stream.
Alright.
I'm doing a lot, like, unless someone says something absolutely off the rails, cannot put on whatever streaming platform we put this on. It's staying in.
What do you mean, like beat and beat, and then you go do the beat to the beat?
Oh my god.
No. But yes, this sequence is interesting. This is where we actually get a glance into one of the more worrying aspects of Tsukiko's powers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little interesting.
And it coming from a place like this, where we're trying to, where Vic and Jamie are just bonding and working through things. Vic very much here in her element as head wife, proverbially speaking, managing everybody's emotional state. But yes, this sequence is going to feed Techno's paranoia about Tsukiko.
Listen, okay, I'm not trying to be some fucking schizo when it comes to her. I generally have the understanding that nothing I think super bad is going to happen. I just don't like it's Crow and Tsukiko together, the two people I trust the least in the entire series, working together the closest between anybody else. I mean, just saying, my worry is warranted. Do I think something's going to happen? I don't know. That's a really good fucking question. I just think there's going to be I feel like there's going to be a conflicting, like, my main thing is I think something's going to happen in the future that Tsukiko's going to want to solve one way, like the perfect solution, and then CJ's going to be like, but no, that's not right, or whatever. But even if that solution 100% saves everybody or whatever, it's not what CJ wants. And that's, going to be one of those moments where it's like, well, but this is for you, my son. It's, it's fine. Everything's for you. And I'm just going to get this whole, like, I fucking told you so. We needed to address this shit way before this happened. That's kind of,
although it's hard to interact. Although the difficulty with interacting with Tsukiko in general.
That's another thing. Is so obviously Jamie and Tsukiko are the exact same person, but like after that exchange that we just had, where Jamie's like, or CJ was like, "You hate when that happens too, right? When they do that," and Jamie's like, "Yeah, I fucking hate it too." As if so. I mean, it really doesn't seem like she has any control when Tsukiko comes out. If it's just, I don't know, man. Overthinking. It's just my curse.
Yeah, I get it. I do get it. It's just up for debate. It could easily be a red herring. It could easily just be more of a
yes, which is why if it turns out to be the world's biggest red herring, I'm gonna yep, fair enough. I'm not even gonna be like, but that's not what it was leading up to. I'm gonna be like, cool, yep, that makes sense to me. it makes sense.
For what it's worth, for all the shit I give you, I think you're at least partially correct. Yes, this sequence very interesting. The girls meditating and resonating their souls. Very similar, I think, to probably what happened with Sarah when she first introduced everyone to the spiritual element.
Yep.
And now their bond is so close, and particularly where the way the power works now that Kyone's power is being channeled through, at least for this world, is being channeled through.
Whoa, an out-of-body experience.
Compliments to Anon for managing to make us feel like Victoria is actually Jamie in this situation, in this sequence, with the way their facial expressions are handled.
Yeah.
And body language and all the rest of it.
The horrified look from Jamie on Vic's face about Vic's body. Oh my god.
I mean, she was made to be perfect, yo. What can we say? See, this is interesting, having Tsukiko converse directly with Jamie. I think this is one of the first times we've seen them do that.
It's happened before, I think. But yeah, you're right.
At least not quite in this sort of way.
Oh, well, yeah.
Not one-on-one
especially-
like this.
Mhm. Yeah, see, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't like
She belongs to us now. Well, I mean, that, again, you could pull that. You could paint that nefariously, or you could point that to simply being a question of perception. Tsukiko's a being of power. Like the balance and control of power is her entire purpose,
Mhm.
and she is the holder of Kyone's power in this world.
See,
Or at least a
I
good
also
chunk.
I don't like the next line, which is, "Are you so surprised you're wearing the garment you took from your wardrobe?" As if viewing only
It objectifies them. Yes,
Dick /
it's
Kyon
very
as
objectifying.
things to be
It's-
put in a room that we own. Like I don't
It's
know, man.
very objectifying language.
Definitely feel like that. Listen, this whole thing may not be that big of a deal. It may just be a conversation that CJ has with Tsukiko to really make her understand that no, we don't just own them. They're,
I mean, Tsukiko may be well aware of that as well. She may just be using it as a metaphor, but
maybe she just
I think it's also worth mentioning that she is a brand new entity. She doesn't have a lifetime of experiences of her own to draw from. She only has the experiences of others. And even those, she doesn't appear to draw a huge amount of emotional...
See, she's a valuable...
Wait.
I'm fucking going on this. I'm trying not to go on this. She's a valuable belonging. Not even a person. It's fucking wild.
No, I agree. It is very alarming language, though. Like I said, there are even if I am providing reasons to why it's not as terrifying as some people might think, I do at baseline agree with you that it's the most concerning sequence of language you've seen from Tsukiko so far.
And, and the thing is, I don't think it's entirely intentional, which is why I think that if this becomes a issue, it won't be a big issue. It will just be a perspective change that CJ has to give to Tsukiko about, like, okay,
Yeah.
so these are not things, these are people, and I mean, I know Tsukiko knows that. It's not like she doesn't, but
There's a difference between knowing something intellectually and emotionally processing and internalizing it, sure. It's interesting that Jamie herself calls out exactly what we're talking about, though. She says, "I
Yeah.
don't like thinking about."
well,
it
because
like
Jamie's fucking
this." And then
Jamie's not.
Tsukiko responds immediately with, "Then don't," which is exactly like that's the right thing to say. That don't think of it like that. You're not thinking of it like that.
I get that. It also feels like it's kind of pushing, like it's ignoring the. It's like, so if
I wouldn't say it's ignoring because those all that sort of terminology implies a kind
if
of
she's gonna tell her to
choice being
ignore
made.
if she's gonna tell her to ignore that type of language, why even use it anyway? Why not? I don't
because
get
she
it.
doesn't understand. Because Tsukiko, I think, as an entity, does not understand. This is a crime of ignorance.
If Jamie
not
understands,
of
shouldn't she? I don't know. Maybe this is just one of those things.
I
where
mean,
it's a
again,
little
we're
bit
coming
of,
back up
like-
against the thing though. The way that Jamie and the other parts of Tsukiko work is that they are basically shards in the same way that Leia is to Carbo.
Yeah, like we
and
talked about
Vic
earlier,
is to
yeah.
Kyon. And are they the same? Do they understand things the same way? No, they don't. Vicky and Kyo could not be more different in many respects in how
That's
they
true.
perceive and control themselves. So I think this is perfectly understandable that Tsukiko doesn't understand. And again, the presence of the fourth soul that we haven't identified yet is probably a big...
the Jamie body language here.
Yes, with the drawn-in shoulders, the hands clutched in front of her. We do get more insight into Jamie's deep-seated insecurity, which, again, as I mentioned kind of earlier, I think that might be a big part of why Tsukiko is the way she is.
Mm-hmm.
Fear and anxiety and insecurity can drive people to do very, very bad things, or just unhealthy things, or just make mistakes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting stuff going on right here.
Am I really this fucking pretentious?
I feel like Jamie kind of misses an important sequence there because that whole bit there kind of seems to imply that Tsukiko might be able to control the physical form somewhat, or maybe even the spiritual form,
Well,
or
I feel
both.
like I feel like it'd be the spiritual one for sure. I feel like changing things physically is really hard. Like any physical actions that happen to do, maybe she could. I feel like
Maybe she
it's
could, but
definitely
whether she
spiritual,
could that far.
100% physical. That's to be seen.
I mean, that's a whole debate in itself.
Yeah.
We've often discussed whether and how much the spiritual can influence the physical, and whether it manifests as gene mods or what. We don't know.
Changing things
We're
in the
not going to
real
get
world
into it
is
again.
big shit. Like it doesn't happen at all in the story. It happens
Well,
a
I mean,
handful
because
of
from
times.
what we can tell, it seems to require them emerging as themselves into the world, and as we've established, that's no bueno if you want the world to continue to exist.
Yeah.
But an interesting thing to note here, Jamie immediately very scared and upset, and then Vic does not take it badly at all, quite the opposite. So Vic was able to see it.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting sequence here. Which means Vic witnessed that entire sequence, which, I mean, she heard Jamie compliment her quite heavily, I should point out.
Uh-huh.
And Vic being very clever about not pointing that out.
So that's one thing that I think is a little weird whenever this happened, which is so after this happens, like we need to tell Mizzy and Teresa, and definitely this is big. Maybe it's a clue towards figuring out what to do about what? Hebe? Ashley? Kieran?
If they can get a link between Ashley and Misaki and Tsukiko, I think the logic there is maybe they can use that to find the other shards, perhaps.
This next scene's really nice. I like this one.
It's nice to get something with Matoi, who hasn't really had the chance to be the center of attention much. And it's also really good to have two people who are actually very similar to each other. Like, if you get past the obvious where they're not, they're both very, very empathetic individuals who thrive on helping and providing emotional service to their partners and to those they can love and care for. Like, they are very similar. They have excessive senses of responsibility. They're very driven in what they choose to pursue. Like, there's a lot of similarity between these two. They have a lot in common, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, outwardly they're very different, but inwardly I think quite similar. See, that's an interesting thing to know. Like I said earlier, Teresa knows him the best in many ways, or at least what she feels what he needs. And Matoi would have made the same choice for Rune. Speaks, I think, to how much she pays attention to him and understands him. I do feel going forward that one of the questions Matoi and him are going to have to, CJ are going to struggle with is how much of her feelings are her own and how much of them are Jamie and Mizzy's, or particularly Jamie's.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like it's, from what we've heard, I feel like it is pretty, like, your own feelings can get mixed up with somebody else's if you're sharing them. But, like, it seems like for the most part, most of the feelings that you feel that are extra are different enough that you can differentiate them a little bit. But
I think that's...
They're definitely...
I think that's true,
sure.
But her particular situation is a bit more unique. She is so tightly bound into Jamie's soul, more so than even Sarah is to CJ. Like, she's literally the mortar and the bricks, as how it's described, that make up the structure of Jamie's soul. There is no differentiation whatsoever as far as anyone's able to tell.
Mm-hmm.
That's, makes it much more of a question. Matoi immediately jumping on that.
Yeah.
And she's showing some real empathy here. And again, it's kind of touching on what Mayu and him discuss when he goes to see her at the Love Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of have a very unique bond, him and the triplets, because they are basically, they're as close to being, kin as it's possible to be when they're that heavily genetically modified, They have a lot in common that no one else can really quite share. It's nice to have that CJ has the perspective, but I do feel like he's being kind of hard on himself here. But then he wouldn't be CJ if he wasn't.
Sure. Yeah, but I say that's just his fucking MO.
But it also shows you the price of being a good person. This is the price of being a good person.
Something to note, though, that I really, really appreciate CJ is that all of his, like, worries of, like, oh my god, this is my fault, like, while we both agree, not really his fault, nothing he ever blames himself for is, like, something, like, wild and extraordinary, like, no, that's not really your fault. And it's like, okay, it is, but it's not like you could have done anything to change that. Like,
he regrets the consequences. That's what he regrets. He regrets the consequence of what they're all going through and blames himself for them.
Something I think a lot of characters do in other stories where it's like, it's really, like, they blame themselves for stuff that's, like, logically you shouldn't think. Like, even if you're upset about things that happened, you know, you should at least have enough to know that, like, okay, there were some things I had my existence had a part in, and some of it didn't. And at least all CJ, whenever he blames himself, it's like, okay, he didn't have any say in the matter, but at least he was involved. But yeah, Matoy talking here about, like, you didn't ask to be created, you know, you've done your being here has done more good to everybody else than you not being here.
Which is all very valid points. Yeah. I mean, this is the key thing that CJ, I think, is struggling with, is that he is not responsible for the sins that those people have done in his name. He had no conscious input on these things.
Yeah.
But his sense of empathy is so strong that he can't differentiate that. And I feel like that's where the girls are going to be a vital counterbalance in that regard.
Yep.
And Matoy makes a really good point here. Created, not born, manufactured. Matoy making the good point that she's just as much a witness now through Tsukiko as Jamie and Zoe. A loving mother. Definitely something. Even after the events of Teresa's arc.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of wound that you don't just get over. Like, you don't. And that's realistic. It's not something that's going to be plausible. Just wait until he has to confront her again and she doesn't know who he is. Trauma.
Yep. I mean,
yes,
that
a very
was,
pleasant
that
little
was,
interlude.
I mean, I feel like, that was probably the better way to end how that chapter ended, with making her forget him and all the shit that came with that. You know, she's going to be a whole lot happier than she would have been if she remembered, but oh no, it's just, that's pretty fucking bad. Forgetting and being forgotten, like, dude, ugh, pretty fucking, I don't know, it couldn't have gotten any better, but I don't know how much worse it could have gotten, that's for sure.
For real.
They don't want to throw you in a padded cell now. Yeah, they just want to throw you in it instead.
Ash having some blind faith there, but I think she might be justified. Like, if you take a step back, I think she's not wrong in quite the way that Kieran fears and everyone fears here. In that they have the information now, so when confirmation arrives later, it won't be so much of a shock. They'll have some context for the experience, really, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And here we get a very intense conversation between Kieran and Sarah.
Yep.
Which provides some context and some answers, but also opens us up to even more questions, as is the norm for Oot.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah making some very good points. Although Kieran's are also valid. Although I think in her case they're coming from a place of just such abject self-loathing and guilt that it kind of contaminates her perspective, to say the least.
I mean, Kieran here is like, yeah, she's
depressed. She's terrified. She's frightened. She's angry. This is a lot of that this is just some of that coming out.
I would. A lot of people would be better off without me. I wouldn't. Yeah.
I mean, it's worth noting though that Kieran doesn't accept that. She deflects it.
Yeah.
Which just shows you how far she still has to go.
See, I'm gonna sound just like that. Oh my god.
She sounds. Thing is, she sounds upset with it, but.
Just blonde.
Diary.
Yep. Do we again? Explanation? None given. Moving on.
I mean, my best guess is that that's what Sarah looked like.
I swear
before.
to God, somebody, I think Anon said it in the Discord, and I still couldn't fucking figure it out. I just don't. I'll need this one spoon-fed to me.
There's a lot of metaphor going on with this one. I see it as basically an expression of her pure Fae self.
Sure, I'm fine with that. Let's go with that. I don't have any arguments there.
Interesting that Sarah didn't see it though, or even know it happened.
Where did? Because she appeared somewhere else, right? Derry.
In CJ's and CJ's world, yeah, in CJ's pocket world.
Okay.
Based on his home in California, she pops up there when Sarah is dancing. These Karen's are self-aware that she's kind of being a bitch because she's, you know, a nervous wreck. The closer she gets to admitting just how scared she is. Yes, they need to have the talk. But first, CJ's new digs. Welcome to the love nest. And poof, there's our girl. CJ here being rather more commanding and in control and calm than they used
being
to.
a little bit more aware.
Authoritative as well, the way he speaks, the way he talks about it. It is genuinely more like a lord to their vassal than I think we've seen him do before. Some maturity, but also some of the loss of innocence that comes with it. And here's the big question, right there. Why did you do that, Crow? See, one could argue that Crow's deliberately manipulating him with that statement by conflating her and Iron.
See, that's the thing that I talked about, which is I don't know. I just don't think that OG.
But it's also true. But it is also the truth. I don't think she's conscious. If she's doing it, it's not conscious. I think she just.
Well, I think it's just her going back to the way that she used to be, and I feel like the way that she used to be is not the way that CJ views Sarah at all. Like,
well, Crow is very clearly struggling with her, with who and what she is now. So it's natural for her, as she gains memories of her old self, to fall back into being that old self. But I think once she realizes that that's not who CJ actually wants her to be, and that more to the point, she can be more than she was. She can choose, I think that will be a pivotal moment for her if she reaches that point. But yeah, I don't feel this is a conscious manipulation by Crow personally. I think this is just her being almost envious, I guess, or wanting to be more like Sarah. Like she says several times that she admires Sarah for who she is and she wishes to be better. The conversation in 44 is like that she's still trying to be better, and I think that's probably what she's trying to do. And she doesn't want him to hate her more than he already does. But yes, Crow makes a good point here. He didn't ask her. He gave her the same respect he did to Sarah. And that's not a small thing when you think about it.
Which totally just keeps reinforcing my thought that like Crow is just that's not how she was treated before. I just don't think that. I seriously
even with the
don't.
even if she wasn't mistreated by OG.
No, I don't think she's mistreated. I just think that the level of like I definitely think it was a
master servant. It was very much master servant. Even if it was a friendly master servant.
Which I don't know if we ever talked about this in the recording, but do you think that OG and Crow were super connected the way that like CJ and
Elin
Sarah
Nin?
are? Yeah.
I don't think that they were Elin Nin.
I don't think so either, but
no,
because technically Crow hasn't died, so we would like there's no because the thing is like what we're led to believe is like if you make that commitment to a bond, you both are like we would rather not reincarnate into a world without the other one.
Yeah, the problem is that OG didn't die either. He shattered. That is a particular distinction. He's not dead.
No, you're right.
He's shattered. That's a key element right there. You know?
Well, but
although think about it, if they were,
different.
I mean, we may be looking at a kind of Alan Myrna situation here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, because they're not. That's also a really good fair point.
They're not, but they are bonded, and obviously she feels that way about him. Like she's very obvious with how intense she feels about her feelings for Alan.
Yeah,
but he doesn't feel the same way. But he doesn't. He's not necessarily abusively horrible to her. He's not particularly nice at times.
No, I mean, hold on. Let's be clear. Like, his language is harsh and fucking like super upfront. But like, his point is like, imagine. I can't remember. It was that.
He's from an era he's from a timeline also.
That New Guys thread that we like reading a bunch.
Sparrows,
he said he was like, imagine meeting your soulmate only to find that she's been railing other dudes for the last like couple years. I mean, it's just kind of like, okay, I get from the period that he's coming from, I understand.
The culture as well. Yeah. I mean, I personally feel like Alan is reviled for the wrong reasons. I don't think he deserves.
Everybody hates on Alan because of that. That's literally the only reason he does.
I mean, it's because Myrna's so fucking adorable, and the way she's. And I get the feeling that's kind of intended. Like we're kind of meant to feel that way, so that we'll get sucker punched when Alan turns out to do something really fucking heroic. I kind of feel like we're being set up there, but that's just my feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's really that he hasn't done anything else that was bad or at all. I mean, he was actually like really chill and nice with talking to CJ and Sarah and everybody else.
He took CJ seriously in a way that none of the others did when they first met.
Yeah,
Seema was polite, but somewhat clearly out of his depth himself. Rodell was hostile and not at all particularly welcoming. Alan at least treated him, I wouldn't say necessarily as an equal, but took him seriously.
We got CJ sleeping again.
Dump truck. The girls have their powwow moment. It's interesting that Kieran is willing to accept that she would have had it with CJ eventually, though. That's a big deal for her when you think about it. Like, she doesn't cope with being vulnerable to anyone.
I seriously think that she says it here, she thought she had more time, but I seriously don't think that she thought about it. I think she was like, it'll happen eventually, but I won't have to worry about it for a while, so she just put it off.
Kieran, like, if you're going to describe one of Kieran's key personality traits, is that it's someone who is running as far away as she can from the things that hurt her the most.
Yeah.
She's come a long way, don't get me wrong. She is coming a long way, but coming out of the kind of trauma that she has gone through is not a short or simple process. And it's very, very challenging to look forward to a future when you're carrying so much of your past on your back.
Mm-hmm.
But I will also say that I feel like there's an element here that CJ is special. Like, even among all how close, as close as she obviously is to Sarah, as close as she is with Misaki,
I just
feel
feel
like
CJ and
CJ
Karen
is a
are
key
so
element.
fucking similar. It's just it's
Yeah,
real. I think
yeah,
it's
they
different.
both take.
I just think it's so different. Like,
Yes, but I mean, this is best shown at the end, and we'll talk about it more.
yes,
At
it
the
is
end.
100%. That's exactly what I was thinking about. But
We'll talk about that when we get to the end. But for now, we'll focus on. We've digressed a lot in this session,
yeah,
so let's focus.
it's fine.
at least for a little bit.
We've got plenty of time. We split this up for a reason. So
True enough.
the next when we do the other chapters, it'll be a whole lot more. I'm assuming it'll be more condensed anyway. But
Yeah, well, we will have less as we keep going forward. We'll have less need to refer to previous things and provide context. So.
yeah.
Misaki doing her best to help.
I really like the Misaki cut-ins. I really love them.
Yes,
this is one of my favorite things. Part of this arc that we've gotten, her narration and then her cut-ins to Kieran talking. I really like it.
And again, Kieran minimizing her value and painting herself in the worst possible light.
And then Sarah
Good
immediately turning that
examples.
around and being like, "Yeah, you should be acting like a baby. This is completely new. What do you mean? That's completely normal."
Mm-hmm. And Sarah showing that she isn't just the bimbo. All the jokes aside, Sarah is actually very fucking smart. Like she puts up the Crow herself calls her out on how much.
I was about to say, Crow literally tells her, "You need to stop fucking acting the way that you are, and show everybody the real you that they need."
Or at least the other half of yourself. Like, I don't think that the bimbo act is an act. I think it's one part of herself that she plays up because she brings comfort to her friends.
I mean, everybody's got different sides to them. I mean,
absolutely,
talking to different
absolutely,
people and all that sort of jazz.
But Crow, I think, also does, to be fair, have a valid point in this, that people don't always don't always need the happy-go-lucky one. People sometimes need.
That's true. Although I feel like amongst the group, there's a lot of seriousness that goes on anyway. But yeah, no, Crow is right.
But most other people's seriousness is couched in a huge amount of emotional volatility and trauma.
Or matricide.
Or matricide. I mean, that kind of goes. Matricide. We'll go with that. Or self-murder in the case of Vic, kind of.
We'll just go down the line here.
We'll just go down the line from left to right, yeah. And we start with the one that a lot of people asked when this first happened. Why not CJ first? See, there's something I think I really was happy to see so casually dropped in the conversation, that Kieran is Fae. She's a Fae. And a fairly unique one, too. Like, Teresa's Faeness comes from her bloodline.
A human made Fae instead of a Fae made human, just the other way around. Very cool.
But considering how the rules of the other side and spiritualism work, it probably has bigger connotations. And also she's born from one of the most powerful Fae in all of existence. That's not a small matter.
If not the most powerful, but yeah, you're right.
Yes. Yeah.
Kind of hard to beat the created chosen one right hand, but interesting to think about.
No, she's the left. Sarah's the right hand.
Oh, sorry, this American schooling system fucking can't remember my lefts and my rights.
Well, I'm just saying it's kind of important because of the symbolism of the left and the right. Just say it, man. Yeah. So this is just as close as their friendship is. I do feel like their Fae essence is kind of the cheat code here as to why she bonded to Sarah first.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it like her explanation.
It makes sense, but it's worth noting that the bridge itself is still through CJ. I personally think, like, she wouldn't have bonded to Sarah if Sarah wasn't bonded to CJ in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're so Sarah and CJ are so close. I mean, it's really it's right there.
For sure, but I'm just saying if Sarah wasn't, then Kieran wouldn't be where she is right now. She would be probably still on the way to bonding with CJ first, and she will still bond with CJ, as gets mentioned in this going forward. Also worth seeing that Sarah's speech has, when she refers to CJ as him in this conversation, she does so capitalized, like Crow does.
Are they the only ones that refer to CJ that way? I can't remember.
No,
that's a good point.
the goddesses
That's
do.
a good thing to point
The
out.
goddesses do.
Yeah, him.
The goddesses do, and other spiritual entities do when they know the full context of who or what he is. Yeah, and Sarah providing a very obvious but easy to miss explanation as to why.
Yeah.
Touching on that, yeah.
Kieran, what? Huh? What?
And I'll be honest, Kieran doesn't seem that upset at the idea. Ooh, such a loaded word phrase for Sarah.
Yeah.
It's a very beautiful way of explaining it as well. I think it does a lot to reassure Kieran. Interesting, though. Not much to really say here that's not already being said out loud in the scene, so we don't really have to add much here.
Yeah.
And Sarah showing that, acceptance comes in many forms and flavors and has its own power. She just accepts it and is in fact overjoyed at the idea of having that level of closeness. Vulnerability is not a thing to be afraid of to Sarah. And I think that's a lesson that Kieran absolutely needs to see enacted. But it's worth noting that from that we kind of get the possibility that Misaki's spirit can be transferred between them over such a bond.
Dude, I really...
I'm just saying, if someone were to create a body for her, if someone were to do that, I'm just saying, just maybe we could have a situation.
I mean, if Crow's getting a body, who's to say that Kieran couldn't split up from Misaki and,
Would they be really? I mean, they might be physically separated, but we all well know how close spiritual reality works.
Yeah, that's true.
People, so I would assume
they for the most part have been separate in terms of visually in the spiritual world.
I do feel it's quite deliberate.
Of the combat stuff, like I don't think we've seen Misaki show up in any of.
Well, Misaki herself says that she can't do anything. All she can do is be there and speak. Mm-hmm. She can't physically impact anything else. Oh, Sarah.
What? Dude, I fucking... Oh, man.
Sometimes she's just very fake.
And Misaki and Kieran just proving that they are so similar. It's same fucking face.
Yeah, same cleavage as well. She's like a fucking cat. I can't stay mad.
She's
Uh,
still a starfish or whatever.
oh, Sarah. Here we get to the part that really fucks Kieran up, or yet another part that fucks Kieran up.
Yeah, I mean, Kieran.
The core of Kieran's fear, right here, the loss of self.
This is a really like reasonable fucking fear. Like, I
I was
totally
waiting
could
on
see
that.
anybody. I don't see
Yeah,
any
but
reason,
even
like,
more so for Kieran, who already had her entire sense of self overwritten
it's
and
like it's
rode
happening
overridden.
again, but also it's just gonna be probably more
And it-
permanent this time.
And yeah, although it might be done with love and kindness and to bond to such a perfect person, but it doesn't matter in many respects. It doesn't matter if the person you're going to become more like is an absolute goddamn saint.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
not you.
It's not
That's-
you. Oh
It's
man.
not you. That's the key thing. Is that it is an attack on personhood, even if it's one with velvet gloves. But even here, Kieran's like, it would probably make me better because of how much of a waste of space I am. He's like, oh God, love. You just want to hold her. You do. This is an interesting moment right here.
Yeah.
Really important going forward. You want to go back just a little bit?
Sure.
Back. Okay, so get a little bit more, just a little more. That line. You don't realize how special you are.
Yeah.
That line, I think, is way more important than even this scene implies. Kieran is unique among all of the elements. She's the one element we know for a fact does not fit into anything. She doesn't fit into like any of the predestination or karma stuff. She doesn't fit. She's the one true wild card in all of this. And that means in a sense she's outside the paradigm and is therefore able to affect it in ways that no one can account for. And I think Sarah, on some level, instinctively recognizes that, even if she doesn't fully cognizant of the possible consequences and context, because she doesn't have the knowledge we do.
And then, of course, Sarah, of course, having another fucking freak out about like becoming Crow, which she's.
But is it a freak out? Because she doesn't really freak out. But Sarah, look, that is again another huge line from Sarah. I'll become more like you.
Yeah.
And that touches on something that I
That's
think
a really good point.
Sarah is terrified to point out to Kieran. Kieran is Crow. She is a Crow shard. That was her purpose. That's what she is. But in the same way that Vic does not like the idea of being, like Keone, or Leia reacts very badly to being called Carpo and being seen as being the same as Carpo. She will. I feel a massive milestone for Kieran will be coming to terms with the fact that she is an expression of Crow, but that she can still be her own person, which is very much the lesson that Leia learned in her arc. But it's very key point. People keep dancing around this with Kieran, understandably, but she's going to have to confront it at some point.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I'm pretty sure the only person who can help her through that will be CJ himself.
Of course.
But that's just my read.
I mean, that's pretty obvious, especially at the end of this chapter.
Kieran. Having a full meltdown.
Yeah.
Understandably, don't get me wrong, I'm not joking. And then, oof. Sarah using her power for the first time over Kieran in the heat of the moment. And it shows you that even with the best of intentions and the most benevolent person in the world, it's not that simple as to say it's going to be fine. It's not that simple.
Yep.
And back on our boy, looking mighty fine. And here the girls come to lay things out for him. And he gets it instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of the key things. He didn't just understand their connection; he understood all of the connotations.
I mean, he did, especially after the previous conversation he had with Tsukiko about, you know, there being a fairy-sized hole in, Kieran.
Yeah, no, and yeah, on an intellectual level, that's all that contributes to it. But I'm not talking about that per se. I'm talking about what it means emotionally for Kieran. He immediately understood, as she talks about in this sequence. He doesn't try to reassure her. He doesn't try to say it's all going to be fine. He just says, "I recognize your pain and your fear, and I am sorry that you have to do this." Like, he doesn't try to soften it. He doesn't try to talk about how, oh, Sarah's so wonderful. It's fine. It's going to be fine. He just accepts her fear and her pain, as Misaki describes. It's in many real ways, it is genuinely CJ's big superpower. Like, he's able to understand and just accept without overreaching, even with the best of intentions. Someone who agreed this was worth crying about. Everyone was so desperate to avoid looking at the negatives that it just did nothing but highlight them to her in the long run. But he didn't do that. He just accepted it. Genuinely one of my favorite CJ moments.
Yeah, this was so fucking so good.
Mm-hmm. And not even sexualized or anything, just pure emotional connection and support. And then he just says what she needs to hear. Not necessarily what she wants, but what she needs to hear to know. And with his touch, key line right there, classic. And we get a flash of CJ's god powers here. I mean, what can you say to that when someone who could literally make worlds makes that kind of promise? That's for someone who is so damaged as Kieran, who hates herself as much as she does, carries all that pain and that trauma. I cannot overstate the impact of a thing like that on a person like that. Like, it's one of the most touching moments. And we see her looking calm for the first moment since she really found out. Like, she's just, maybe it's not the end of the world after all. Also, Ojon playing definitely one of my favorite track, tying with Anya's combat theme. But it's just so good.
Yeah, this whole sequence, the beginning, just this whole end of this chapter was fucking incredible. It was so
huge emotional punch to me. I feel no shame in admitting I got choked up the first time. I still am right now. Like, just going through it again, talking about it. It's really so emotionally impactful. It's great stuff. And that's a key thing. Like, she actually believed him. Like, the others, she couldn't accept it. But from him, perfect. It hit. She could not deny it. Such was the strength of his determination in it. And, the connection they have. Like you said, they're very similar. And I think that resonates with her on a very deep level. Yes, a nice little closing bit of tranquility after a very emotional chapter.
Yes, but very, very good.
Oh, yeah. From an emotional perspective, I mean, I will absolutely say that where the chapters before Teresa's arc allowed Anon to have, don't get me wrong, plenty of emotional stuff in that too. Absolutely. Vic's arc, obviously, all that stuff. The Teresa's arc and this arc so far have really allowed Anon to flex his emotional writing chops. Because there's less urgency with the combat. This is much more arcs that are about people achieving catharsis, coming to terms, taking emotional steps forward as much as like fighting a goddess or dealing with demons and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Personal demons,
Yeah, this
as
is
well as
probably one of my
literal ones.
favorite chapters for sure. I especially that second. I mean, that second half was just fucking incredible. And Kieran's been my favorite, one of my favorite characters since the beginning. But I mean, obviously, more than just like it's not just the way that she looks. I always thought that characters like her, I absolutely love.
I
And
mean,
her,
she's got a huge amount of emotional weight to her character, which is not something you actually see that often. The thing is with characters like her is a lot of the time they get saved and then they're saved, and there's nothing really much
yeah,
more added on top of that, right? Like you see them in animes, TV shows, characters who get saved by the MC and then they become loyal to them, and then that's it. Like they're around and they might get a bit of screen time, but like they're usually quotation marks fixed.
yeah. It especially since this is gonna. I mean, this Anon is clarified. This is her arc for sure, but this arc doesn't just focus just on her. It's about a bunch of other, key pieces. And
I mean, yeah, I mean,
together.
this is one half of the arc that's going to be also tying into Ashley's arc, which makes sense now that we know about the whole twin thing. And I feel like that might also be true. What might also be true is that Kieran's arc, in a sense, will carry on through Ash's as well. Like whatever happens in this
it's
arc,
got
is
to.
going to still,
I definitely feel like we'll get some sort of resolution for Kieran here, but then it's definitely just going to keep building up and continuing on through Ashley's arc.
I mean, yeah, we're not even to halfway yet, right? So...
Right? Because it's 50 that we end off at for this arc, right? 50?
Yeah. Well, 49.50, sort of. It's usually a bit of a soft number because of how he wraps how Anon likes to wrap things up.
Because I think it's either I thought it was 50 and then 51's the start of the new one is what I was under the impression of. It could be.
Yeah, but also 50 is when Jamie sex happens, which is the conjunction.
Well, okay, it's either that or it's 40 or it's 51 because.
Well, no. Per Anon, it's happy Jamie sex in the first one and then sad Jamie sex in 51. So.
Oh right.
So we'll see how that turns out. There's a lot to unpack there.
Oh boy, yeah.
Luckily, yes, no, that was.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, that was 46, and so these are going to come out together at the exact same time when we release them, and if we get
but they were done. They were done over like 3 or 4 weeks. So
yeah.
2.5 weeks.
Yeah, it hasn't been. Yeah, but But once the new chapters come out, we'll be able to do them in one long take and just be done with it, not having to split it up, hopefully. And then we'll actually be able to release them a lot quicker because, we'll know what works and what doesn't work. Well, these will...
and also, there'll be a lot less need for us to keep referring back to context to fill in blanks and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, we might split these up because I will be splitting up. So 45 will be its own one. Funnily enough, this chapter was long enough that we split it apart because we needed to, because the last one was a significant amount of time compared to the first one.
The free roam sections, I think, are going to be like that because, there's a reason he does them in 2 releases. So.
Yes, and it actually works out pretty well for us because splitting up between the 2 release chapters, even though we didn't do that intentionally, ended up working out pretty well because now I've got 2 full sections of equal video to 45 from 46 that we can split up. That way, if anybody wants to watch it and just listen to it or whatever on their, off time or whatever, they don't have to listen to a 4-hour long, episode. Because that's kind of what this is turning out to be. So we'll split it up, make it really nice, and then the later chapters that we do will be hopefully more condensed. We won't have to go back and talk about a bunch of stuff to, clarify and, bring up things from earlier chapters that we didn't record or anything.
If the reception's big enough and it helps, we might go back and do reflections on the
which I'm totally down to do. I've been, especially considering I had been meaning to go for a long time and replay some of the earlier chapters. It really will give
some motivation to do that. Yeah, same. But yeah, no, and if we do that, my personal guess is we'll probably do the first 15 chapters, which is what I'm shorthandedly calling Crow's arc. because it kind of deals with Crow really. Like
The whole story is Crow's arc.
The whole story is Crow's arc.
That's right.
But yes, and then after that, obviously we have Vic's arc, Jamie's arc, sorry, then Vic's arc, and then Leia's arc, and then Teresa's.
Well, this has been Oot Cast.
This has been Oot Cast signing off.
That's right.
Good night and good luck. You know, I guess shit, that one's already been used. Kieran's ass is awesome.
Hashtag Blame Crow.
Hashtag Blame Crow.
That's right. We'll see you guys later.
Yes, we will see you next time, probably.
Goodbye.
Bye.